Okay, today we're going to be talking about food and health as it applies to all 12 signs of the zodiac. We're dealing with numerology, but we're also dealing with astrology in this chapter. And we're going to start going over all 12 signs, starting with the sign of Aries. And we're going to just start going through all these signs, showing about the food and health, the cell salts and food to be eating to help you have a higher quality of life. Thank you guys for being here. We're going to jump right back into this book. Okay, welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to the Openly Occultic Book Club, where we're reading about numerology, discovering all we need to know about our inner selves, about as far as the energetics are made up of, right? As far as the energetics are concerned, I want to thank you guys for being here with me today. Yeah, we're reading about astrology. We're in chapter 12. We're talking about astrology now. And in chapter 12, the topic of food and health came up. So now we're going to go ahead and jump into this section of the book where we're going to go ahead and start talking about all the foods and health issues associated with each of the 12 signs. Good stuff. Glad to hear about it personally. So let's see what they're talking about. Aries, March 21st through April 20th. Mm-hmm. Characteristic expression. Arians have very active brains, always seeking to learn things, always thinking and planning. Right? We know they're ruled by Mars. They are high-spirited people, dynamic, volatile, courageous, witty, and potentially very good scholars. Learning is important to them as they are bright social associations. As are bright social associations. They're rarely lost for words and ever ready to verbally defend themselves and their actions. For those who live constructively, responsibility is their second nature. In its expression, they find that their acute intuition gives them constant guidance. The other side of their nature is to be reckless, headstrong, and often quite fierce. This is when they live destructively and become a liability to society. Factors that could swing the personality away from its naturally constructive expression are often traced to mineral deficiency in the diet, particularly of the most vital cell salts for Aryans, potassium phosphate. Okay? Potassium phosphate. That's what you need, Aryans. These are the negative tendencies that an Aryan needs to be needs to surmount, right? So Aries, sun signs, we talking to you. Due to the high level of cerebral energy, and that's because in the last episode he let us know that the sun sign is the sign that what's the word? We're talking about we're merging astrology and numerology, and instead we're dealing with just the sun sign. So the sun sign. That's why I said, hey, if you're Aries sun sign, not moon, not rising, not Aries and this and that planet, that's not, it's not getting into exhaustive information about astrology in this numerology book. So we're just sticking to the sun signs. All right. Due to the high level of cerebral energy, Arians can be extremely impatient with others. However, with a loved one, they can show so much patience as to be easily imposed upon. This will effectively reduce the reliability of their intuition and cause them to make some monumental errors of judgment. Even when living constructively, they should take care not to overestimate their capabilities or to engage in repeatedly lengthy periods of mental activity without balancing such periods with relaxation. Such neglect will lead to enervation, headaches, and recklessness. They must think before speaking, especially if they tend to be critical. For Arians have a sharp tongue and a fiery temper when they lose self control. Just basic information on Aries as a sun sign. Here's the health aspects pertaining to them. Aries relates to the cerebrum, the human brain. Hence, a physical characteristic usually related to Arians is a large head. They often have a larger than average brain and require a diet that will provide extra nourishment to the brain cells and nerve fluid. Did you know that? The biochemical cell salt, or the biochemic cell salt most useful in this regard, is known as caliphos, potassium phosphate. It can be consumed in a supplementary form as a powder or liquid. But if while taking this supplement, the Aryan adheres to a conventional high acid diet based on processed and refined foods, a high meat intake, tea, coffee, and or alcohol, their hyperacid condition will negate the alkalizing benefits of the cell salts. They're far better advised to alter their diet to include natural foods, with special emphasis on those richest in natural potassium phosphate as listed, according to availability. This is great information, guys. Okay. What made me think of Dr. Sebi with the electric food diet, alkaline diet. It made me think of Dr. Layla Africa and the holistic health diet. So, yes, let's go. Yeast. This is what you should keep on your shelves, Aries. Edible brewers and Tarula varieties, right? Soya grits, and for those who want milk, soya or rice milk. Soya beans soaked for 24 hours, then steamed. Wheat germ and wheat bran. Both must be fresh and raw. Sunflower seeds, either sprouted or as raw whole kernels. Chickpeas, garbanzos, right? And lentils. Raw, unsalted nuts, especially almonds, Brazils, and pistachios. And rye, sprouted is best. Next is freshly stone ground, right? A deficiency of potassium phosphate can be generally recognized as affecting mental processes, manifesting in such symptoms as migraine, extreme nervousness, frequent hysteria, mental exhaustion, psychosis, paranoia, wild fancies, and forebodings, and so on. Okay? Wow. Now we know. And here's the karmic lesson: Arians must learn the meaning of selfless love, recognizing its marked difference to physical desire. Compassion is the highest expression of universal love. So this virtue must become a part of their every thought, word, and deed. Vital to the development of compassion is the mastery of emotions, especially temper, anger, and jealousy. For sure. Now, in the last episode, it was saying about, how the first four signs of the zodiac pertain to the mind plane in numerology. And that's because the Aries, the Taurus, the Gemini, and the Cancer are dealing with thinking and mental things. So they will be akin to the mind plane. I think we're to break these videos down into, four signs each. So we'll do today, we'll go ahead and do Aries, Taurus, Gemini, and Cancer. The next video, we'll do the next four. And the video after that, we'll do the next four. We'll probably be at the end of the book by then. We're on page 148 now, and the book is 205 pages, give or take. Maybe there's a glossary at the end or something we don't need to read. So this might be the last few videos of this book here in season 2. All right. So let's continue on now that we've learned a little bit about Aries and the karmic lessons and the food they should stick to and the reasons why, right? Let's go on. Now we know about the potassium phosphate. That's what they are deficient in or need more of to help balance out the energies they got going, right? Okay, Taurus, April 21st to May 20th. The characteristic expression: Taurians are dominating, strong, and persistent people who find their easiest form of expression through movement. They're extremely stable and solid friends, highly reliable and predictable. They're also very orthodox, which makes them slow to accept new ideas. Taurus governs the cerebellum, the lower brain, and the nerve center regulating physical movement. Hence, the initial response from a Taurian to do something rather than think about it. What happened? Taurus governs the cerebellum, the lower brain, and the nerve center regulating physical movement. Hence, the initial response for a Taurian to do something rather than think about it. It's typos in this book. This creates reactions rather than actions, giving rise to emotional involvement and passionate expression. Hmm. Nevertheless, this is an earth sign, a stabilizing influence that balances the emotions unless some extreme irritation persists. In the normal course of events, these people have kindly dispositions and are slow to anger. But when ultimately aroused, they become volcanic. Once they explode, it's as though they have blown off excess steam from their escape valve, which in turn allows them to return to an equilibrium. A further influence of Earth is observed in the Taurians' love for comfort and financial security and the good things in life, especially rich food. They have to learn that such food is rarely a good choice for the body. Mhm. Negative tendencies to be surmounted. Impulsive desire plays too great a part in the life of Taurians. They must learn to reason more and to think carefully before doing. Then they'll act rather than react. Their constancy, their constancy should never be allowed to become obstinacy. Their generosity should not prompt them to become overindulgent. Obstinacy and overindulgence are emotional reactions that are often resorted to when fear prevails: fear of change, fear of being disliked, or fear of being insecure. The cerebellum is often referred to as the animal brain, for it dominates the unconscious, the body's movement, and its passion. Special care should be taken to avoid emotional excess, for passion cannot hear the voice of reason. Ain't that the truth? Here's the health aspects for Taurus. Taurus exerts strong influence on the ears, neck, throat, liver, and gallbladder. People born under this sign may have large ears, a strong neck, and a powerful voice. Many become successful wrestlers or singers. It's not uncommon for Taurians to have weight problems brought about primarily by their tendency to overindulge in rich food and to retain excess water in the body. The biochemical cell salt, nat sulf, which is sodium sulfate, and again, we have cell salts here at cedargroveherbs.com. So make sure, as you make your list of things that you think you would like to experiment on to have a higher quality of life, make sure you swing by cedargroveherbs.com for your cell salts. You can get a 15% discount by using the code Pure Love. You'll see that there on the site, all caps, no space, PURELOVE. The biochemical cell salt nat sulf, sodium sulfate, is aligned with Taurus because this is the most efficient expeller of water. Deficiency in this salt will induce pains in the back of the neck, which sometimes run down the spine, affecting the liver. Hmm. My nephew's a Taurus, and he's allergic to a lot of plants. My first thought is to give him herbs, but he's allergic to a lot of plants. Just went to the doctor and found out he's allergic, to all these things. So I'm thinking to myself, other than, of course, feeding them the food that's going to talk about in this book. But also go ahead and get some nat sulf. You know, I'm going to ask him if he has that a lot of pains in the back of his neck. But I think I do often see him. You know, I just think it's because you're playing video games all the time. But I got to keep in mind he's also a Taurus, and he's got his own unique chemistry going on in his body, right? So I'm gonna ask him about pains in the back of his neck, if they run down his spine and stuff, because this is what he's saying. It happens with Tauruses if they're deficient in this cell salt. As this cell salt is vital to the body's elimination, excuse me, as this cell salt is vital to the body's elimination of water, its lack will cause the body to resort to the next best means. It will produce nerve and muscular spasms, thereby inducing feverishness from the violent effort to throw off excessive moisture via the bloodstream through perspiration. Hmm. This also effectively reduces the body's toxicity level. But you know, these kids sit up in the house under the AC. They don't want to go outside to sweat out the toxins, right? They want to play the video games and watch the YouTubes. Okay. So, yeah, I see what's being said here. The alternate fever and chill as the body cleanses, then normalizes itself, together with the muscular aches from the spasms, give rise to the disease that continue to baffle physicians and have given it the name influenza. Taurians in hot and humid climates, where the air is supercharged with moisture and people drink more, which in turn impedes their digestion and nutrient absorption, run greater risk of moisture retention. Did you know that? Okay. Drinking a lot of water, too much water can impede your digestion and nutrient or absorption. And then therefore for the Taurus, it can run a greater risk of moisture retention. This often produces, what's this word, biliousness, and sometimes predisposes one towards malaria. The habit of adding common salt, sodium chloride, to foods must be avoided, as this chemical works against the body's efforts to eliminate excess moisture. Contrary to popular opinion, salt does not avert dehydration or cramps. It's a mild poison, which is the reason the body works to throw it off through its pores. A diet comprised of foods rich in natural sodium sulfate will also be found to contain adequate natural sodium chloride to facilitate proper cellular chemical balance. Good to know, right? We're learning the science. We're learning about how to be as healthy and as much optimize our bodies, facilities as best as possible. We want to work with our bodies. We've been working against it for far too long. And now we want to take sovereignty, take control, be the king or queen of your own life. And it starts with learning the body. And you don't have to learn everything. Start with learning about you. You know what I mean? Start there. You know. The diet should be low in saturated fatty acids and cholesterol to ease the strain on the liver, gallbladder, and arteries. Some of the most desirable foods include abundant fresh salad vegetables, particularly sprouts, celery, and carrots. Dried fruits such as figs, raisins, and sultanas are also exceptionally nourishing to Taurians. One meal a day of fresh fruits eaten raw is definitely beneficial, particularly as the first meal of the day. Okay? Fresh salad vegetables, sprouts, celery, carrots, keep them on deck for your Taurus children. hmm Here's the karmic lesson, and including raisins. I ate so many raisins as a child. I love raisins and figs. Absolutely, keep them around for kids to snack on, right? Instead of the candies and stuff. For that Taurus baby, for sure. And for you as a grown up, right? Eat you some figs and some raisins. So Tana's, it's definitely nourishing for you. And as it was saying, it has that sodium calcite, the salt that you need. You know what I mean? For sure. Here's the karmic lesson for Taurus: to recognize the difference between the imprudent emotional reactions and balanced rational actions provides one of the most vital experiences in the life of a person born under the sign of Taurus. It's through service to humankind that they'll learn to acquire mastery over their desires and emotions. Consequently, they'll always be led into activities that will allow them such experiences because they got to learn it. So they're going to be pushed into situations where it can get a little volatile emotionally, right? So that they can learn how to control their emotions. Mm. Gemini, talking to me, May 21st to June 20th. I told you I'm on the cusp of Gemini. I got Cancer energy as well because I'm on the cusp as a Gemini. Okay, characteristic expression. Here we're obliged to consider two people in one. Symbolically represented as the twins, the sign of Gemini indicates two personalities. One relates to the innate individuality, the other relates to the personality of social intercourse. Belonging to the air sign of the head triplicity, Gemini people are extremely sensitive and subject to rapid change of thought without warning. All right, so you see, I be giving my own little opinions and be talking and ruminating over the things we read. So you say, Gemini people are especially sensitive and subject to rapid change of thought without warning. My mind's always going off on a tangent, and I'm always multitasking and thinking about other stuff, but I try to definitely give us our time here at the book club. I love to read and learn new things. And this is the type of stuff I'm into reading and learning about. So I try to definitely stay focused and stay in the present while we're reading this and not think of anything else outside of this. You guys got my time for sure. So their fast moving brains tend to give them a mercurial nature, but this also implies some very beneficial abilities. That is, a reliable sense of discrimination and a gift of communication. To be instantly able to discriminate between sense and nonsense, truth and falsehood, reality and unreality is characteristic of Geminis. So too is their ability to communicate their ideas in writing. They convey their thoughts more freely this way than they can usually do verbally. And I think that's my next move, guys. I've been ruminating on everything we've been learning, processing everything we've been learning, particularly in the last few chapters, starting from about chapter 9 on up to now. And because we were dealing with the personal year numbers, the 9 year cycle of change, the pyramid peaks. And I'm seeing and I'm thinking my next move is going to be somewhere in the area of writing. Like I might start writing books, things of that nature to convey my thoughts more freely. Right? Well, I'm always in danger of getting kicked off of YouTube, aren't we? If you, especially you start talking things they don't want to hear about, it's censorship here. So maybe I can write in a book, and it just be more free to discuss the things I think. All right, here's the negative tendencies to be surmounted. The twin personalities of the Gemini have the disadvantage of confusing people, and even Geminis themselves can be uncertain of how to react to different situations. In general, they tend to oscillate between their lower and higher selves, their emotional and spiritual natures. Once they learn not to react, but to thoughtfully consider first, they'll not be so drawn to the emotional. Man, they tell me that in human design too. So yeah, not to be as impulsive. You got Mercury. It's fast. This is pure nerves. It's quick. Electricity moving through your nervous system. It's fast. So to learn to control all that, yeah. Once they learn not to react, but to thoughtfully consider first, they'll not be so drawn to the emotional. Until then, they'll find their power of concentration diminishing with a corresponding increase in uncertainty and nervousness. Rest and relaxation are prime requisites that help to keep their nerves under control. They should become involved in the arts, including singing, playing an instrument, painting, pottery making, and so on. This will provide balance to their lives and is an excellent balm for their nervous system. I personally drink herbs at this moment in time. I'm drinking a lot of herbs for the nervous system, and you can too. If you're a Gemini, you definitely want to get herbs for the nervous system. You can too. At cedargroveherbs.com, we're giving you free shipping on bulk quantities of nerve herbs. That's skullcap, lemon balm, ashwagandha, lavender, St. Peter's wort. You know what I mean? The known nerve, vagal tone nerve, nervine herbs, if you will. So you can get free shipping on pound bags. I'm drinking lemon balm and dandelion as we speak. Now, dandelion is not a nerve herb, but it's good for Geminis. It's good to for absorption of minerals as well. So hey, we have a lot of tools at our disposal. We just got to use them. Knowledge is power. That's true, but knowledge is only half the battle. You got to put it into practice, right? You got to take that step. You know what I mean? Here's the health aspects for the Gemini. Usually, the most noticeable features of Gemini bodies are their strong shoulders, arms, and hands. Their major weakness lies in their respiratory passages, with congestion a common problem. The most important of the 12 biochemical cell salts for the Gemini is kalium, potassium chloride. This is both an essential blood nourisher and a vital nutrient for the proper formation of fibrin, the elastic fibrous protein that regulates the formation of the skin and hair. A deficiency of potassium chloride can cause a thickening of fibrin, menstrual irregularities, and or congestion when located in the respiratory passage. This might manifest as pleurisy, catarrh, pneumonia, diphtheria, or bronchitis. If the congested fibrin is not thrown out of the bloodstream, it can create embolisms that might clog the auricles and ventricles of the heart, ultimately causing it to stop. Hmm, this is interesting. My dad also is a Gemini. So see, and after COVID or during COVID, he had a heart attack. So maybe I need to get some Cali Murph from my dad, guys. Hmm. All right. The most satisfactory manner by which to obtain adequate potassium chloride is through the diet. So I can get him some Cali Murph, or we can start adding these foods he's going to suggest into his diet. Foods richest in natural potassium chloride are listed below, according to its concentration: kelp, powder and granules, yeast, brewers and torula, avocados. I keep avocados on deck, so I'm gonna eat some today. Coconut meat. I don't like coconut too much, guys. I use coconut oil, but that's it. I use coconut milk once in a while, but hardly ever. I just need one box, really, one little can. And dried fruits. Most fresh vegetables. I know we're going through a crisis right now with the lettuce and all. A lot of these vegetables is dicey. You might end up dying. Let me stop. Getting very bad diarrhea. Who knows? It's a lot going on. Stay focused. Go to a trusted farmer, small farmer. I don't know. Local farmer. Hey, most fresh vegetables, especially sprouts, asparagus, cabbage, carrot, celery, eggplant, kohlrabi, lettuce, parsnip, and tomato. I mean, I love tomatoes. I eat a lot of celery and carrots. I just had a bunch of celery and carrots with some chicken the other day that I put in the crock pot. So, yes, keep these vegetables on deck. Keep that because that's going to help with the cell salt that you uh, tend to lack, or it's very important for your genetic makeup, for your body, and you need it to nourish that blood and to nourish that fibrin, right? Okay. Now we're moving on to the karmic lesson of the Gemini. All people born under the air signs are motivated by a yearning for sisterhood. Yet this is less obvious in the expression of the Gemini than in the Libran or Aquarian. The strong mentality of the Gemini, especially evident in their analytical approach to life and to people, is inclined to make them appear more egocentric than they are in reality. This is further aggravated by a difficulty in verbal expression, which is so often a part of the Gemini nature. Deep within, Geminis know that they often misrepresent themselves. Though this is not intentional, they don't know how to correct it. They'll find release from this quandary when they acknowledge the yearning in the depths of their souls for love, companionship, and understanding. In a word, sisterhood. Mm. As Geminis mature, they become more aware of the importance of compassion and their relationships with other people. Wow. Okay. I receive that. I receive that. Mm-hmm. Love, companionship, and understanding. I said I wanted my love, my respect, and my understanding, my understanding. I want my love, respect, and understanding. If you can't give it to me, but now I'm older and wiser, right? I'm 46 now, guys. So, some things it just takes time to learn. It said as Geminis mature, they become more aware of the importance of compassion in their relationships with other people. That's true, because when I was younger, there was a lot that I didn't care about. Just also due to my particular circumstances. My mother passed away when I was 20, so the foundation is just kind of ripped out from under you. And it's like you got to find your way in the world without your mom. Cancers, June 21st to July 21st. The astrological term cancer derives from the Latin for crab and has no relationship to the malignant disease. The disease was so called because of its tumorous nature and unrestrained reproductive ability. Symbolically, the crab tells us much about the motivation and expression of people born under this sign. They're persistent, cautious, and prudent, with a deeply sensitive and tender nature. Their perseverance is enforced by a cultivated hardiness and acquired protection of sensitive feelings. Right? They're home loving, with a deep concern for their castle and the well being of all within it. Their love for children is often satisfied by producing large families, for which their robust reproductive organs stand them in good stead. A further crab like expression is the fondness these people have of collecting things for which they have no immediate use or prospect of use. These are your collectors. Especially pronounced is the protectiveness and tenacity of those born under the sign of Cancer. These traits underlie so much of their endeavor, physical, emotional, and mental. They possess a naturally good memory and strive to retain this important attribute, memory being tenacity of thought. Cancerians are often drawn to health related fields where they are natural healers with a deep concern for human welfare. So you see, again, uh, a mind plane sign, as it was with the Taurus, as it was with the Gemini and the Aries. So this is why, here we're going to just break it down to, because we're dealing with astrology in terms of numerology. And it said the first four signs, the 12 signs of the zodiac are going to be broken down into three groups, just like you have three groups here: the mind plane, the soul plane, and the basic self. So the first signs of the zodiac, the first four signs, are akin to the mind plane in numerology. Because these four signs, this Aries, this Taurus, this Gemini, and this Cancer, they're dealing with thinking and mental energy, as different from the other signs. They're more on the mental plane than the other signs. So the first four signs will be on the mind plane. The next four signs after that will be on the soul plane, and then the last four signs of the zodiac will be dealing with basic self, the physical plane. So we can see it, right? All right. So the Cancerians are often drawn to health related fields. They're natural healers with a deep concern for human welfare. These are the negative tendencies that the Cancers need to surmount, though. The acute sensitivity of Cancerians must be recognized as vital to their spiritual growth, and to their loving concern for others. But unless they've achieved a reasonable level of mastery, these people risk the decline of their strengths by becoming victims of their own emotions. Right? The sensitivity. These are manifested as nervous outbreaks and moodiness, creating considerable drains on their energy reserves. Parents must be especially careful to train their Cancerian children to gain confidence in themselves and their feelings and not to react emotionally to apparent thoughtfulness demonstrated by less sensitive people. All right? They're like, why you didn't consider me? You didn't even think about me. You gotta let these children know, everybody's not as sensitive and, dare we say, loving as you. But also, you need to learn boundaries. You can't be ruled by your emotions. You need to master your emotions, for sure. So, unless they're carefully trained in self discipline, these children could become reclusive and very shy, especially if they have the arrow of hypersensitivity. We learned about the arrows long ago, chapter 5, I believe, for sure. That's when you have, empty spaces on your birth chart, on your little graph. There's empty spaces. Just like in tic tac toe. If it's all empty from 3, 5, and 7, it's all empty. They're not filled in. Now you got an arrow. You could put a diagonal line through that. hmm And that means something too. So there's arrows of individuality. The Cancer is, if they have this arrow of hypersensitivity, they're going to be dealing with it. You know. So I hope you guys learned about that part. If you haven't, you can go back to learn about the arrows. Let's see. I found that many people who believe that they're suffering from hypoglycemia are in reality suffering acute innervation induced by a lack of control of their extreme sensitivity. This applies particularly to people born under the sign of Cancer. They're inclined to worry about things of a domestic nature, especially the home and the welfare of their children. Fear of financial insecurity is also a great source of worry for many Cancerians. Unless these anxieties and torments are controlled, mental imbalance could follow. Mhm. Here's the health aspects. The sign of Cancer exerts its major influence in the chest, spleen, solar plexus, and in human design, the solar plexus is called the center of feelings, the spiritual awareness center, where the emotional waves. I bring it up because I'm just in awe of the system and being able to know so much about yourself according to that human design system. But yes, the sign of Cancer exerts its major influence in the chest, spleen, solar plexus, and stomach. People with this sun sign must be very careful with their diet because they don't have strong stomachs and usually succumb to gastric problems. When associated with worry, this gives a fine prescription for ulcers. hmm Simple natural foods should comprise their basic diet because Cancerians must assiduously avoid highly seasoned or highly preserved foods such as curry, peppers, pickles, strong cheeses, heavily spiced continental type foods, and so on. The most vital biochemical salt or biochemic salt, cell salt for Cancerians is calcium fluoride, the cell salt that plays an essential role in the development and maintenance of the brain membranes, as well as the eyes, teeth, bones, and internal cellular structure of the skin. Hmm. Excuse me. A deficiency, a deficiency of this mineral salt will result from a diet lacking in green vegetables, sprouts, carrots, unsalted raw nuts, or mild cheeses, especially cottage. These foods are excellent sources of natural calcium fluoride. Such deficiencies can result in cracked skin, loss of cellular elasticity, especially between the toes or fingers, around the anus or the mouth, early loss of memory, and or the development of an anxiety complex, cataracts in the eyes, and for women, very painful periods, and ultimately weakened reproductive organs. Mm. So now we know a little bit about the health problems associated with each of the astrological signs. Hmm. Here's the karmic lesson that the Cancerian needs to learn. By using the mind to attain a degree of emotional control, and by conserving nervous energy, we achieve the most precious of all possessions, inner peace. Such is the essential lesson to be pursued by Cancerians. Self control is not always easily achieved, but then neither is anything of lasting value attained without effort. As soon as they learn to channel their sensitivities into avenues of healing and human welfare, Cancerians will have made significant progress in acquiring this harmonious or harmonizing peace. Hmm. Well, that's good to know. Absolutely good to know. I hope you guys learned a lot and enjoyed being here with me today, learning these things. As it was saying in the last episode, it was talking about a lot of people. They kind of feel like numerology, and they're skeptics of numerology and astrology. And we wonder why, because if you just sit down and have a conversation without being triggered religiously in your mind, um, you see yourself better. So we wish that for them. We hope we've had new viewers here to have being able to see this type of stuff and maybe gain a broader perspective, right? That's why I do it. So thank you guys so much for being here with me today. I hope to see you soon. Enjoy the rest of your day, and until next time, wholeness and balance.